Right now, you are wearing clothes. You probably put them on this morning without thinking twice. But here is a question that almost nobody asks. Why? Not why do you personally wear clothes? Why do humans wear clothes at all? Because we are the only animal on Earth that does this. Every other creature on this planet lives and dies in the skin they were born with. We don't. We cover ourselves every single day, in every culture, on every continent, in every time period of recorded history. And the reason we started doing this is not what you think. It was not modesty. It was not fashion. It was not even warmth. The real reason humans started wearing clothes will change how you think about who we are. Let's go back 300,000 years ago, Africa. Early humans. No clothes, no fabric, no needles, no thread, just skin. And they were fine. Africa was warm. The savanna was hot. Early humans had spent millions of years adapting to that heat. They had 2 million sweat glands, minimal body hair, dark skin that protected against the sun. They did not need clothes. So why did they start wearing them? The answer begins with a tiny creature. The louse. Specifically, the clothes louse. Here is something remarkable. Humans have two types of lice, head lice and body lice. Head lice live in hair. They have been with us for millions of years. But body lice are different. Body lice can only survive in clothing. They cannot live on bare skin. They need fabric to lay their eggs and survive. So scientists asked a simple question. When did body lice first appear? If we can find when body lice evolved from head lice, we can find exactly when humans first started wearing clothes. The answer was shocking. Body lice first appeared roughly 170,000 years ago. That is when humans first started wearing clothes. Not for fashion, not for modesty. Because 170,000 years ago, something happened that changed everything. The climate changed. A massive ice age hit. Temperatures dropped dramatically. Even in Africa, nights became dangerously cold. And humans who had spent millions of years perfectly adapted to heat suddenly found themselves freezing. They needed warmth. And the only warmth available was on the bodies of the animals around them. So they took it. The first clothing was not sewn, not designed, not chosen. It was ripped. A human killed an animal, and instead of just eating it, they noticed something. The skin was warm. They wrapped it around themselves and survived a night that would have killed them otherwise. That is where it started. Not in a fashion house, not in a designer's mind. In a moment of desperation on a freezing night 170,000 years ago. But here is where it gets really interesting. Wearing animal skin was not enough. Raw animal skin rots. It stiffens. It smells. It falls apart within days. So someone had to figure out how to preserve it. And that process, the process of turning raw animal skin into usable clothing, is one of the most complex technologies early humans ever developed. First, they had to scrape the skin clean, remove all the fat and tissue from the inside. They used stone scrapers, carefully, patiently, for hours. Then they had to soften it. Raw skin dries hard as wood. Ancient humans discovered that rubbing animal brain into the skin softened it dramatically. This sounds disgusting. It worked perfectly. The fats in brain tissue break down the proteins in skin and make it permanently soft and flexible. Indigenous peoples around the world were still using this exact technique when European explorers arrived thousands of years later. Then came the greatest technological leap in the history of clothing, the needle. The oldest sewing needle ever found is 50,000 years old. It was discovered in a cave in Siberia. It was made from the bone of a bird. It was 7 centimeters long. It had a perfectly formed eye at one end for thread. Someone 50,000 years ago sat down with a bird bone and carefully carved it into a needle, precise enough to sew clothing. Think about what that means. That is not survival. That is craftsmanship. That is a person who had developed enough skill, enough patience, enough forward thinking to create a precision tool for the sole purpose of making better clothing. And the thread they used? Plant fibers twisted together, or strips of animal sinew, thin enough to pass through the needle, strong enough to hold clothing together. With a needle and thread, clothing changed completely. No longer just a skin draped over the shoulders. Now fitted garments, sleeves, hoods, boots. Archaeologists have found evidence of tailored clothing going back 45,000 years, fitted to the body, sewn at the seams, designed to trap warmth against the skin. And this is when something extraordinary happened. Clothing stopped being just survival. It became identity. Because the moment humans could make clothing, they started making choices about it. This color, that pattern, these decorations. 34,000 years ago, in the Republic of Georgia, archaeologists found wild flax fibers that had been dyed black, gray, turquoise, pink. Someone 34,000 years ago chose to dye their clothing pink. Not because it was warmer, not because it was more practical, because they liked it, because it said something about who they were. That moment is the beginning of fashion. Not in Paris, not in Milan, in a cave in Georgia 34,000 years ago, where someone decided that what they wore should reflect who they were. And then clothing became something even more powerful. It became status. In ancient human groups, the quality of your clothing told everyone around you something important. How skilled you were, how much resources you had, how much time you could afford to spend on decoration rather than pure survival. A beautifully made garment said, "I am capable, I am successful, I am someone worth knowing." The same message a designer suit sends today. Nothing has changed. We just forgot where it started. And here is the final thing about clothing that almost nobody knows. Clothing may be the reason modern humans survived and every other human species did not. Because 70,000 years ago, when humans left Africa and began spreading across the world, they walked into environments that would have killed them without protection. Siberia, Northern Europe, the Arctic, temperatures that dropped to minus 40 degrees. Without tailored, fitted clothing, survival in those environments is impossible. Neanderthals lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. They made basic coverings from animal skins, but evidence suggests they never developed the needle, never developed tailored, fitted clothing. And when modern humans arrived with their sewn, fitted garments, their layered clothing systems, their ability to trap body heat efficiently, they could survive winters that Neanderthals struggled with. Some researchers now believe that clothing technology was one of the key advantages that allowed modern humans to spread across the entire planet, while every other human species disappeared. We did not just wear clothes to survive the cold. We wore clothes to outlast everyone else. So the next time you get dressed in the morning, the next time you choose what to wear, the next time you feel something when you put on clothes that make you feel like yourself, remember what you are actually doing. You are continuing a 170,000-year-old technology that kept your ancestors alive through ice ages, carried them across continents, and outlasted every other human species that ever walked this earth. You are not just getting dressed. You are doing the most human thing there is.